Hello, dear friends. Today we continue our acquaintance with the surprisingly candid and detailed memoirs of a Wehrmacht general. Don't forget to rate the video, and let's get started. September 15th, 1941. Letter to his wife. The village of Kotanovka. I receive such rare and belated letters from you. Everyone else gets information much faster than I do. And you never write about how things are going at home. I literally feel like there is a vacuum behind me. In fact, your last letter was dated August 16th, and I already received a letter from Hartmut dated August 28th. Has he already left for Russia? I was actually very glad that he was at home. After all, we have difficult battles ahead of us in the fall, and the decisive battle is still ahead. Certainly the Russians are very weakened, but the final strong blow, which we hope will knock them down completely, has not yet been dealt. Nevertheless, I do not believe that Russia will surrender before the onset of winter, even if we are victorious in the decisive battle. The country is so vast, there are so many people, and moreover they are still pinning their hopes on help from America and England. Both countries will do everything in their power to support this ally, who is providing them with vital assistance. The Russians are holding back the entire German Wehrmacht and inflicting significant damage on its best units. You should see how tired and exhausted our troops are. 3 months of unprecedented fighting and exhausting marches have not passed without a trace. We cannot hope for an end to this campaign and a leave in the fall. That must be clear to you. The fighting in Russia will continue until weather conditions force it to stop. I ask you once again to take your valuables from Münster and transport them, perhaps to Barbie. I am now seriously considering vacating the apartment in Münster. I am very afraid that America will actively enter the war in the foreseeable future, and then the long nights of raids on Westphalia will become more frequent and intense. September 15th. Report to the family. We have almost surrounded the Russians. Everyone who has fallen into the huge pocket west of Kiev will have to believe this. It is completely incomprehensible why the Russians left their troops in Ukraine in such a way that it would lead to their capture. Now the ring is slowly closing in. In 8 days, we can expect a special official announcement about another huge success. In addition to its military significance, this success is likely to have great economic importance, as the vast expanses of Ukraine, the most fertile part of Russia, will fall into our hands. Our interpreter claims that Ukraine can feed all of Europe. Without it, Russia will face famine. That suits me fine. Overall, these victories are the result of our battles since August 4th, when my corps went on the offensive south of Bobruisk. Those were the first steps toward what is being completed today. We are now deep in the rear of the southernmost Russian army group. We are already fighting for the only roads along which it could retreat. As I write these lines, I hear the continuous rumble of artillery in the room. The enemy is putting up stubborn resistance. However, slowly but surely, it is having to abandon one position after another. And so it will continue until it is finished. We will not be fighting the final battles here. After we began and half completed the encirclement, we are being withdrawn and deployed somewhere else. We are not happy about this. We would like to finish what we have been preparing for in months of fighting. The Kiev cauldron would be the culmination of these efforts. Besides, each of us would rather stay here in the south than move to colder regions. And we fear that it will be much more uncomfortable there than here, since the weather here is quite tolerable for mid-September. The nights are getting colder, but during the day it can be really hot. The whole area here is much cleaner, friendlier, and better built up than in unwelcoming Belarus. Contrary to the southern character of the area, people are already bundling up as if it were Christmas. Women wrap thick woolen shawls around their heads and look like people suffering from toothache. Old men and teenagers, there are no other men, wear fur hats and quilted jackets. We would die of heat in them. Churches in Ukraine are still crowned with crosses. In some remote corners, even the interior decoration has been preserved. Overall, it seems that the Bolshevization of the country was not as intense and comprehensive as in the rest of Russia, and some originality has been preserved. September 17th. Letter to my wife. You have caused me great trouble. Balzan returned yesterday. He was supposed to pick up my old uniform coat in Münster, but you took it to Freiburg, and now I am sitting here without a coat. Today was the first cold autumn day, and everyone is freezing. I would never have thought that autumn would begin so early at the latitude of Kiev, but that's how it is. Now I have no idea how my sheepskin coat will get to me, and on top of that, we are heading 350 kilometers north, where it will be much more uncomfortable. September 19th. The city of Chernihiv. Our combat operations in Ukraine ended earlier than we thought. The defeat near Kiev took place. Overall, this means that there is a gaping hole in the Russian front 400 kilometers wide and 200 kilometers deep. Even the Russian command, with its enormous human resources, will find it difficult to plug this hole with new units to protect the industrial area east of Kharkiv. Thus, the results achieved in recent days are of decisive importance for the course of the war. We are now sitting in Chernihiv, in Russian barracks, from whose ceiling bedbugs fall on us at night like diving bombers. After being in constant tension since June 22nd, we feel like we are on vacation here. Chernihiv, which used to have a population of 150,000, was a city full of attractions. Now it is literally a pile of ruins. The extent of the destruction in Russian cities is beyond anything we have known or seen before. Only a few buildings remain in the city itself, damaged but not destroyed by chance, as well as poor wooden huts on the outskirts. Otherwise, the city is a smoldering pile of rubble, from which protrude the ruins of churches built hundreds of years ago, whose 2-meter walls withstood even modern shells. But they are completely burned out. Where this did not happen, they are so dilapidated, devastated, and littered with filth from the Bolshevik era that you look away in disgust. And yet they say that these churches were once simply beautiful. Among them are several that would have become landmarks in Germany thanks to their wild, Baroque style, size, and special beauty. Chernihiv was a place of pilgrimage, where a particularly miraculous icon of the Mother of God was kept. I was able to save 25 paintings from the basement of the almost completely burned-down museum. We are busy saving the only iconostasis that has survived in the cathedral, whose carved wooden doors with abundant gilding compel my Count Moya to make new pilgrimages to the cathedral. Due to Bolshevism and the war, the level of destruction in the cities of this country far exceeds that of the 30 Years' War. In rural areas, on the other hand, the impact of the war is barely noticeable after just a couple of days. No matter how heavily the villages were shelled and how many poor huts were destroyed, no matter how many calves, chickens, and piglets were eaten, the overall picture of the area does not change much. Only by paying attention to details or human destinies can one realize the destructive power of war. Perhaps books will be written about this in the future. The cities are almost completely deserted. Only women, children, and the elderly remain in the villages. Everyone else wanders the vast expanses of Russia, cut off from their homes. According to prisoners' testimony, railway stations are crowded with people begging soldiers for a piece of bread. I think that the number of deaths from disease and overexertion among these people torn from their homes is as high as the losses on the battlefield. Perhaps this situation, along with military defeat, will one day create opposition to the existing system of government in Russia. However, as I said before, there are no signs of this yet. The Soviets are feared everywhere. Their terror is so merciless that no one dares to say a word. In addition, a significant portion of the youth are convinced communists who believe that such methods are necessary to control a people as primitive as the Russians. So we will have to exert long-term and significant pressure on them until the situation inside Russia becomes so unbearable that it paralyzes any resistance. The loss of Ukraine, the threat of losing the industrial region around Kharkiv, and the neutralization of St. Petersburg are steps in this direction. Now that summer is over and we can no longer go swimming, the lice infestation is reaching the levels that exhausted us during World War I. And we have once again reached the point where the infantry is partially infested with lice, as infantrymen are the most exhausted and least protected against lice. We are using the current break to counteract this as much as possible. Our railway, which surprisingly has no timetable, no blocking system, and sometimes requires transfers, takes us straight here and gives us a few days to get rid of the lice before the troops move on. At the moment, we are releasing all Russian prisoners from the captured Western territories to return home. They are very much needed there, as there is a shortage of labor in the countryside. This is probably also preparation for the creation of new satellite states. The British once suggested that we would create an independent Ukraine, as well as Belarus and the Baltic states. Now we have advanced far enough to gradually move towards implementing this. In a couple of days, our rest will be over. New combat operations lie ahead. We firmly hope that they will not differ from the previous ones. September 20th. Letter to my wife. Tomorrow a car is leaving for Germany to bring warm clothes. In a letter sent by courier plane, I already asked you to send me a sheepskin coat from my old uniform, warm long johns and socks, earmuffs, and a pair of warm gloves. The day before yesterday, the Führer awarded me the Knight's Cross. Army Commander Vikes, who was stationed near us in Chernigov, suddenly invited me and the Chief of Staff to dinner and presented me with it. I was extremely surprised. I really did not expect it. Yes, we made a valuable contribution, even a decisive one, but I did not expect an award. I am happy that this news will particularly please Hartmut. I myself would have preferred it if they had not praised me so much in the justification. September 22nd, Chernihiv. Yesterday's report on the Wehrmacht's actions mentioned the number of prisoners taken by Reichenau's army. Our army was not mentioned. Yet it was we who pulled Reichenau out of the quagmire in which he had been stuck for 6 weeks, unable to even move. Only the actions of our army, and in addition our tanks, created the conditions for the Kiev cauldron. But at the moment when the cauldron slammed shut, we were taken out, and others boasted about the trophies we had captured. This somewhat spoils the mood, especially for the soldiers. They say that we were not mentioned in order to preserve military secrecy. I feel sorry for our army commander, von Vikes, a calm but extremely decent man. September 24th. 4 years ago, my father died. So much has happened since then. It seems like that sad day was a long time ago. How will the war end? The decisive hour has not yet struck. The top brass has seriously miscalculated Russia. We can only hope that future events will unfold in such a way that we can say, Russia has been practically neutralized. However, even in this case, we should not harbor any illusions that the situation within Russia will change and the country will withdraw from the war. Britain has definitely recovered over the summer. America is eager to enter the war. The climax of the war is still ahead. This means that everything will drag on. Today we are at the factory near Kiev. The weather was beautiful, but despite the sun, it was not hot. It looks like there will be frost at night. We have moved 250 kilometers north, but we still have not reached our new section of the front. There are no more fields of tobacco or sunflowers, only potatoes. They say that the area we are going to is the best hunting ground for wolves in all of European Russia. It is clear that forests and swamps await us again, and with them all the accompanying problems in terms of combat operations and movement. Since the Russian Southern Army Group was practically defeated near Kiev, which is not to the credit of Reichenau but to our army, and especially my corps, the upcoming operations will be of particular importance for the further development of events in the East. The more successful they are, the better, and the less force the Russians will be able to field next spring. No one who has gotten to know Russia wants to fight here next year, as they did this year. Every German who has encountered Bolshevism has had enough of it. The war remains in the same stalemate. If America enters it, which has practically already happened, a new enemy will appear, capable of supporting Britain at least with the help of its Air Force and Navy. September 25th. I flew on the Storch to Klincy, to the Army's location, 50 minutes. I flew over an armored train that had been completely bombed by the Luftwaffe. Klincy is a completely preserved city with a population of 40,000. The first intact city we have seen since the German border. It happens. An old wooden church, decorated with picturesque icons, and in front of it, a row of shops. The population is happy and grateful that they can go to their church again. Unfortunately, we do not understand that we can use this to our advantage by helping them to restore the churches. After lunch, there is a meeting at Army headquarters about the upcoming operation, during which we are tasked with defending the flank in a difficult terrain, impenetrable thickets. September 26th. Return flight. Due to rain and caution, we flew via Kiev, not to the planned airfield south of Roslavl, but to another one right next to the city. The weather is cold and capricious. Because of the numerous Russian fighters, I was not put on the Storch, but on the Weisse. An hour and a half later, I arrived at my destination. During this time, the previously planned airfield was bombed by the Russians, and the Storch landing there hit a fallen bomb with its rear wheels and lost its entire tail. The passengers were unharmed. In Roslavl, I met Colonel General Gopner, my old friend from the military academy, who welcomed me warmly and told me about the stubborn resistance of the Russians near St. Petersburg. Finally, I reached Chet via Ryabchi in his staff car, where we settled in poor huts on the site of the departed 44th Division. All the villages in this area are the poorest we have seen. A harsh cold wind, gray clouds, the first harbingers of the Russian winter. September 27th. In the morning and before lunch, there are 3 heavy air raids not far from us to the north. Everything shakes and wobbles from the explosions. No wonder. The 17th Division, followed by the 261st, are advancing along the Bryansk-Roslavl highway from Puklino, within sight of the enemy, in some places in direct sight. His heavy artillery is firing at the highway. It is surprising that he is limiting himself to individual volleys. In any case, there is no question of covert movement, even in the most general sense. Intercepted Russian radio communications, in which they request reinforcements because of an impending German attack, clearly show us that they are not blind. The reason for our neglect of camouflage in this case is lack of time. Our divisions are approaching from the southwest at the last minute, so to speak, with their tongues hanging out. The operation must begin as soon as possible, as winter is approaching. And yet, with the help of small detours, the advance could have been better camouflaged. But since these are not my divisions, I cannot influence them. We are wondering whether the Russian army group under Timoshenko will accept battle or retreat. The overall situation requires the latter. After such a hole has been blown in the front near Kiev, they cannot remain in place without worrying about their left flank. On the other hand, A distant retreat means the loss of the Moscow region and its military industry. The Moscow region, as well as Kharkiv and the Donetsk basin, are now under threat. This is a further consequence of the battles near Gomel and Kiev. But the combat activity in our sector does not indicate any intention to retreat. The Russians are firing intensely and sending in reconnaissance groups. That's all for today. If you like the video, please support it with a like and subscribe to the channel. See you all soon.